welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Molly Malloy and I am a 5th grade teacher in Southern California. You can also follow me along on Instagram at Lessons with Laughter. And this is Bree, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself to you.
Hi, my name is Bree, or Miss Bailey, and I student taught last year from the beginning of August up till March of 2020. From August till October, I was in a 2nd grade classroom, and then from October till December, I was with this lovely lady's classroom in 5th grade. And then from December till March, or January till March, I was in a mild to moderate resource special ed classroom.
Yay! And she is so amazing, and I'm so lucky to have her be my student teacher this year. But in today's video, I asked over on Instagram what questions you guys had about either being a student teacher or being a cooperating teacher or master teacher. And so we wrote down all your questions on notepads. And so we thought we would kind of go back and forth and answer your questions. Bree will answer about being a student teacher, and then I will answer the questions about being a cooperating or a master teacher. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, first question is, and some of them will both kind of respond to. So yeah. First question is, how do you build a strong and friendly relationship with your cooperating teacher?
So I would say take the time to get to know your cooperating teacher. I know starting the school year out is crazy, and even diving into a new classroom with a teacher that is already super experienced can be very intimidating. But take the time to have lunch together and just talk through your interests, even outside of school, I'd say, shows you watch or foods that you like, or in this case, buy them a lot of Starbucks. That's what I did. Because I'm such a coffee drinker. And then when I found out Molly wasn't a coffee drinker, I was like, oh, okay, what do you like to drink then?
I never ever had gotten Starbucks before school before. And then she got me hooked this year because she would go get it before school. And then we started taking turns. So she would go pick it up for me, and then I would go pick it up for both of us. And now I get a pink drink way too much.
I can't function without my coffee, so.
I love it, yay!
What were the first things you gave for your student teacher to start with?
Okay, so, and I'm trying to think back to this, we were talking about it before. So I gave her, I think just a lot of the basic things that she needed to know, a class roster with all the students' names, our schedule, our pull-out groups, just a lot of that basic information that she needed to know about our class and our students. And so that was the basic stuff. And then a lot of things I gave her as things came up, and she's like, oh, can I get a copy of that? Or hey, do you have more information about that? Then I'd give her as things came up throughout the year. But just for starting, I think those were the main essential things.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's good.
We're good. Okay. What's the best way your mentor teacher supported you? And this can be not just me, but your other mentor teachers too.
I think all of my mentor teachers were very open to my ideas, and that speaks very loudly. I know in Molly's classroom, I learned from my 2nd grade master teacher about morning meetings, and I saw how amazing that experience was. And going into an older grade level, I was like, I don't really know if this will be okay for older kids, but let's try it. And so I told her about it, and then she was like, yeah, go ahead, do it. And so I think that is really important, just letting your student teacher kind of have control over little things that they can experiment with that's completely by themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. And and I know probably every single cooperating teacher says this, but I learned so many great things from Bree. I know she learned stuff from me, but I learned so many great things from her too. And so when you have a student teacher, it's not just going to be you teaching them. You're going to learn so much because they're taking so many classes and learning about so many great practices. And so they will bring a lot of that into your classroom as well. And so that's one of my favorite things. Well, there's so many things, but that's one of my favorite things about having a student teacher, because now morning meetings, that was something I always wanted to try. And Bree came in and was like, hey, I want to do this. And we just ran with it. And that's something now that I will continue doing. And I did continue doing even after she left. So if you are thinking about being a cooperating teacher, just know your student, you will learn so many cool new things from your student teacher, just like they will learn cool things from you.
Totally.
Okay. What is the usual workload outside of class and school for a student teacher?
Okay, so when you're not doing your clinical practice in the classroom, it's a lot, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how it is in other states, but in California, there is definitely a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to become a student teacher. And while you're doing your student teaching, you have your regular classes, and you have this wonderful test called the TPA. So depending on what credential you're getting your credentials in, you have to study for this test, and it's pretty extreme, like, I'm not gonna lie. But I'd say the thing that helped me the most is just stay organized. Be very intentional about when you schedule time to study, when you schedule time just for your TPA. Everyone knows what works best for them, and what worked best for me was being really intentional about time that I needed to just do this specific assignment, and I would get out of the house and go somewhere where I could just really focus on it.
Yeah. And then, okay, follow-up question. Could you have a job while student teaching?
It's possible. I've known some people that do it. I had some friends who would work at restaurants on the weekends or do like side tutoring jobs, which is also a great idea because you can practice some of the things that you're learning in your classroom. But it is, I'm going to be honest, it's very hard to work because you get there when the teacher gets there, you stay until they stay, and if you want to go above and beyond, you go to the meetings, you go to the after school programs, you just kind of want to immerse yourself so you get the full experience of teaching. But I have known friends that do work and do it at the same time. Also, some credential programs offer internships where you can get paid depending, like I know for special education, a lot of people did internships because they could get paid for their student teaching position.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How hard is it to give up your class to someone else?
Okay, this is like, I feel, I got this, so many people submitted this question, and I feel like this is one of the biggest worries about becoming a cooperating teacher. And okay, if I'm 100% honest, I have had student teachers in the past that it was a lot more tough for. Bree is like such a natural. She actually, before she started teaching, she worked with tell them a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So the same school that Molly works at, I had a position as the language arts specialist kind of assistant. So I would pull kids for small reading groups throughout the day. And that was definitely something that was really helpful student teaching at the school because I knew a lot of the staff and the students that went there. But yeah, and I was also subbing before too.
That's right. Yeah. So she was like such a natural. And so I really wasn't super concerned about her taking over the class. Of course, it's hard because you're used to like the way that you do things, and your student teacher is not going to do everything the same way that you do. And you don't really want them to because you want them to bring in their personality and their style and their way of doing things. But I will say I was so lucky to have Bree as my student teacher because, like I said, she was just a natural. She was so good with the kids. And it was fun to see her start taking things over and doing them in a different way. And then I'll also say she did start taking things over slowly, as I'm sure all student teachers do. So she started with the read aloud, I think was the first thing that she started taking over. And then from there, morning meeting?
I started doing my own math group when we did math rotations. And then, we did morning meeting practice, which was like my own thing that I did by myself. And then slowly as you go through your credential program, you have to be observed and all that stuff. So I think we made it by like the 5th week, I was supposed to be like by myself.
Full time,
right?
Yeah. So having that like slow progression of her taking things over also helped. And then it was really cool for me too, because as she was teaching, I could kind of sit back and watch and like learn more about my students or kind of like step in and help them if they needed extra help. So it really was like our students were like, oh my gosh, we have 2 teachers in the classroom. And that's honestly what it felt like. We talked all the time how we felt more like co-teachers than a student teacher and a cooperating teacher and our kids were like so excited about it because they had 2 teachers to go to. So we just everything, like even like their social emotional needs, if they needed someone to talk to, like she could step outside and talk with them while I was teaching or vice versa. And so, it was super beneficial for our students to have both of us as a resource to go to. And they felt comfortable going to both of us too.
Yeah.
So, love it. Oh, it makes me miss it so much.
I know, I was going to say, I was like, I'm such a big advocate for co-teaching now because I see why like it's so beneficial in so many ways.
So beneficial, yeah. What is one thing you wish you did more of as a student teacher?
This is a good question. I would say going back, I would probably want to do more lessons in content areas that I am not super comfortable with. Only because more practice is beneficial. And so for me, I'm very strong in English and writing and arts and music and that kind of like right brain stuff. But math and science is where I struggle a little bit. And I think if I could go back, I would force myself to teach and plan more math and science lessons just because it gives you more of an experience with that content subject area. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become teaching it. So I think that would be my little piece of advice.
Love it.
How many years of experience does your district require for you to host a student teacher?
So our district requires 5 years of teaching experience in order to host a student teacher. And then I've been teaching, this coming year will be my 11th year of teaching, which is crazy. I feel like I just started teaching yesterday.
So you should get 2 this year, 2 student teachers.
Okay, what does it take to become a student teacher? Are there qualifications that you needed?
Yes. In the state of California, there's quite a bit of qualifications to become a student teacher. The ones I can remember off the top of my head is you have to have your bachelor's degree. You have to pass both the C-BEST and the C-SET, which are 2 different tests we have to take in California. And you also have to like get your TB clearance. There's a couple other things. Oh, you have to have like insurance to teach in a classroom. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I can remember right now.
And in California, it is different than in other states. Because
Yeah.
I know some friends from other states do their credential as part of their undergrad, which is so cool.
Yeah.
I wish it was like that in California. But ours, you have to have your undergrad degree first, and then you go into a credential program.
I think maybe some schools might do that, but my school was not like that. I had to go, I did my undergrad, and then I went to a graduate program and did it that way. So, yeah. Yep, and then there's all the other tests you have to take in your credential program, but we don't have to get into that.
No, let's get into it.
Okay.
Tell them what they're in for.
So once you're in your credential program, you're done with the CSET. During my credential program, I had to take the RECA, which is a reading comprehensive assessment. I can't remember what the acronym is, but you take a class for that, and then you take the RECA, and then you have to take your TPAs. So for a multiple subject credential, you have to take 2 TPAs, which stands for the Teacher Performance Assessment. And it's basically like an observation of your teaching skills. So the first TPA, you have to pick the subject content of either math or science. And then the second one, I think, is ELA. And then so the first one, you teach it, you videotape yourself, you submit all these videos, you write an essay about it. It's a really lengthy process. I am proof that you can do it though, and you will get through it.
Amazing. So good.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be in the classroom for
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
So I had to like leave and go somewhere else while she did it. So it was like her on her own.
Yeah.
And she killed it. She did so awesome.
My second one definitely went better than my first one. I think you just get a better feel for what they expect from you. So just, I mean, you could do a whole video on just that, but ask around and see what people have done for their TPAs, and that's how I kind of understood what I need to do. I just word of mouth talked to everyone that I knew that had taken it. Does your district pay you to have a student teacher?
So that I think depends on the school that your student teacher is from. So my district did not pay me to have a student teacher. However, the program that she was going through gave me, I think it was like a $500 stipend.
Yeah.
But another student teacher I had in the past, I didn't get paid for that. So it just depends on their school or their program that they're coming from. Some districts may pay. That's really cool if your district pays. Our district doesn't, so it came from her program.
Which my university from my graduate was a private university, so I don't know if that
makes a difference.
Yeah, maybe.
No. I would love to hear any general student teaching tips and tricks.
The biggest tip I have is to connect with your students, and every classroom that's going to look different for every grade level too. But for Molly's classroom, the thing that I did, which I actually got advice from my 2nd grade master teacher, was to start journals with the students. So like those little composition books, even like something like this size would work. Just have them write to you. Like start out by introducing yourself. Of course, you could do, I think I did like a little video when I came into your class, or like a slideshow. And I just talked about like where I went to school, what I like to do outside of school, and stuff about my life. And then I told the students I have journals for you and you can ask me whatever question that you want. And so we did that for about 2 weeks. We would write to each other back and forth, and you get to learn about the students through those little journals. So a lot of kids told me like they love Stranger Things and I love Stranger Things. And so we got to talk about Stranger Things a lot, or sports that they play, or places that they've traveled to, because I was telling them I really like to travel, and just little things like that to get a connection with your students is really important.
Yeah, and she had like such a strong relationship with the kids right off the bat, I would say. And I think a big part of it was because of that, because they felt connected to her. They felt like she cared about them. And that like right from the beginning established like she was a teacher in our classroom, and they really felt like they really bonded with you for that. And then I love because Bree used like stuff from that in our lessons and stuff, like things that she learned about the students she incorporated. So like when we do our quick quote write, she did a quote from Stranger Things one day.
Oh yeah,
and
I totally forgot about that.
So excited about it. And I love that because that was something that she may not have learned about them if she didn't do those journals back and forth.
Yeah.
So,
oh, I totally forgot about that. I love that.
Meanwhile, I had no clue because I don't watch Stranger Things.
It's too scary for you.
It's too scary for me. I don't do scary things.
What are your best tips or advice?
Okay.
Teachers hosting.
The best tips and advice for being a cooperating teacher. I would say one of my big ones that I've learned just from experiences with the student teacher is like right off the bat, kind of talk through your different expectations. And so we had kind of set up right off the bat, like when Bree was going to get there, when she would leave. And so that way we kind of had an agreement on all those like little things right off the bat. So that was a really great thing to kind of start with and set up ahead of time. The second thing would be like, I tried not to really jump in like in the middle of her lessons. Like she would teach her whole lesson and then afterwards we would talk about it. And I always tried to start with like, what do you think went well? And so then she would kind of share her reflections. And honestly, like the majority of the time, things that I was going to kind of discuss or point out with her, like she already knew. So she had already reflected on it. It gave her a chance to be more self-reflective, which I think is so important as a teacher. And so that's kind of how we led our post-lesson discussions is like, what do you think went well? What would you want to do? Or like, what are your steps for next time? Or what are your next steps? And so those conversations were super productive. And I feel like that was so much more beneficial than if I was like jumping in the middle of her lesson.
I think just to go off of that, feedback is super important. And that's one thing my credential program was very adamant about, was always ask for feedback. I remember I taught a science lesson and it went horrible. Like, I don't know what was going on that day with the kids, but you know, you just have those days where it's like, something's in the air, everyone's just going crazy, and you just have to like roll with the punches. And I remember just like sitting at the front of the classroom and I was like, you guys, I'm about to cry. And the kids were like, why? And I was like, because I've asked you to stop talking so many times. And then I remember going up to Molly afterwards and I was like, okay, I need feedback because that went horrible. And she was so nice. She was like, no, it's just today is a weird day. Like your lesson was well planned and prepared. But there's just some times where you just have to figure it out. And I think intervening all the time and being like, okay, let's try this while your student teacher is teaching is not going to be helpful, because then they don't really get the experience of like having a plan B, C, D at the time.
Yeah. And even as like veteran teachers, like I've been teaching for 10 years, like we still have days like that where we're like, oh my gosh, nothing's going right. The kids are like crazy. And so it's good for student teachers to experience because that's real life. Like you have days where like things don't go as planned or lessons don't go as planned. And it's really good for you to just kind of learn and experience that for yourself instead of always having someone else come in and
change course.
Yeah. Do you feel like your student teaching experience was beneficial?
Yes. Totally. All of my student teaching experiences. I feel like I learned so many things, so many tips and tricks from the teachers. Even just as far as like the behind the scenes stuff, like paperwork and grading and all of that is really important too. So that's a quick piece of advice I'd give is ask questions about the behind the scenes stuff, because that's a whole other monster to navigate. But
and Bree came to like faculty meetings, IEP meetings, like when I was talking with our other resource teachers about students, like she was there in those conversations. And so I think that was really great for you, because I know not all student teachers do that. But I feel like you learned so much from really being involved and like immersed in the student teaching experience.
So as a student teacher, I would say ask when those things are happening. And then as a cooperating teacher, I would say invite your student teacher to as much stuff. Like we even went to like fundraisers together.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, when the school would do like a book fundraiser, like I went because like I felt like that was important for me to go and just do little things like that.
Yeah, totally. How do you stand out among the rest?
Okay, I feel like this question comes up a lot. I know it came up a lot for me in my school environment, so my own classes that I had to attend as a student teacher. Students were constantly asking, like, how do we stand out? How do we stand out in an interview or, like, relationship with the principal? And my best advice, I don't really know that I'm, like, one that's, like, a standout, but...
She is.
I would say just really hone in on your strengths, because if you try to do everything and be good at everything, you're gonna crumble at some point, because you can't be amazing at everything. But really tap into what you're strong in. And for me, that was... emotional relationships with the kids. That was doing very like artsy, creative things. Be weird. Like I remember the first time I did a read aloud, I did all these crazy voices, and I remember I was like nervous. I was like, Molly's gonna think I'm such a weirdo, but I have to do a British accent while I read Harry Potter. So I did it, and the kids end up like, of course, eating it up, and they wanted to do accents too, but just be yourself and be weird and hone in on those strengths, because that's what's going to stand out the most.
100% everything she said.
What's the most important thing for a cooperating teacher to do?
I would say you just like be there to support your student teacher, making sure that you are providing resources and anything that they need along the way, but also just be there like as a mentor for if they have questions, if they need advice, just make sure that you are really supporting them and meeting their needs. Bree, what would you say?
I would say make it known in your classroom that student teacher is another teacher. I remember a lot of my friends coming to me and being like, the kids don't treat me the same. They kind of teach me like a parent volunteer. You really want to like make it known that person in that room is a co-teacher, that the kids need to respect and listen and all of that stuff, because that gives them more of an opportunity to teach and be independent in the classroom.
That's such a good point. And she would even share with them too, like about like, oh, like I'm doing a really important lesson today that I have to videotape. And when she passed her EdTPA, like the kids were so excited for her, and they're like, now you can get your own classroom.
Yeah.
And they were like just super excited about her journey and supporting her as a teacher, because they viewed her as another teacher in the classroom, which is so cool.
Yeah, they were awesome. I love your class.
I love them too. What is your best piece of advice for a student teacher going into the new year?
This new year is probably going to look very different for most of the student teachers out there. So I can't really speak on that experience, but I would say right off the bat, try to establish a relationship with your teacher and your students. So whatever that looks like, if that's doing the journals or via Google Classroom, or making a video about yourself and having the kids respond with their own video, or just something to let them know like, hey, I'm a person and I have feelings and interests and I'm going to be teaching you, I think is a great way to just start off on the right foot.
Yeah. And I think just like letting the kids, working with your cooperating teacher, make sure that the students see you too, and like really reinforcing like you are another teacher in the classroom, even though it's like a virtual classroom. But I think that will make building those relationships just even that much more important.
Yeah. Totally.
Yay! Okay, that is it. We went through, I think, almost all the questions.
Thanks for having me on your talk show.
We had so much fun planning this video together and reminiscing about the past year when Brie was in my classroom. I miss her so much, and it was hard when she left. Like when we went back to school in January, we were all like, my students and I were just like, we miss Miss Bailey so much. But I hope this helped if you are going to be going into your student teaching or if you are going to be a cooperating teacher. Hopefully this gave you just some tips and advice and answered some of the questions that you have about it.
Yay!
All right. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.